want you to tell me what this means, okay? I'm going to ask you, I'm going to read you something. I waited half an hour for my muffalata, so the man gave me some lanyap.
I'm supposed to tell you what a muffalata is? A muffler repair. And the man gave me some lanyap?
Lanyap.
Lanyap. Coffee.
Muffalata, no idea?
Muffins?
Nope. Sandwich. Lanyap.
Lanyap. An omelet.
Gave me some lanyap.
How the hell am I supposed to know what that is?
In New Orleans, if you lived in New Orleans, you would understand
that
exactly what it was saying.
Yes.
That's why they're in so much trouble down
Right.
there.
Let's break.
They don't speak any English. I mean, their English is horrendous.
Red beans, pinball machine, chicory coffee and voodoo queen, filet gumbo and praline. Everything is hot down in New Orleans. I thought I heard New Orleans say there's a street parade down on Esplanade. Now if it rains, you ain't gonna feel no pain. Boy, we're gonna march today.
New Orleans is a very self-conscious city. People here talk a lot about what New Orleans is like, how it's different from other places, how it's special and unique, what we have that nobody else has, why people in New Orleans never want to leave once they've moved here. And speech is just one of those characteristics.
Language is an essential part of culture, and you demonstrate your culture in a number of ways, in what you eat and what clothes you wear and how you greet people and how you stand, and but also, perhaps more than any of these, how you speak.
You just know. You know when somebody is from somewhere else. You know, you can't describe it. You just know they're not from here. I think, well, okay, when I was in school during the summertime, I was in Alabama, and they told me that I talk fast, a lot faster.
You know, when I was in the service, they thought I was from Brooklyn, New York, and I was born and raised right here in New Orleans. They said, man, when I told them I was from New Orleans, they said, New Orleans, you got to be crazy. You're from Brooklyn. I said, man, look at my driver's license. Brooklyn. New Orleans, born and raised.
One of the things that I've learned is very hard for people that are from here to understand the New Orleans dialect. I've had people ask me what language we speak when we were speaking English, at least to me, good English.
Forget what anyone else says. We do speak English in New Orleans, a dialect of English, just like everybody else in America speaks a dialect. That's a form of English that's been influenced and changed through the years by the history and culture of the people who speak it. So here in New Orleans, whenever we talk, which is something we love to do, you can hear our history talking too.
Oh, babe, that is a tomato, mandarin, apple, and orange, got strawberry, got lemon, got onion, got garlic. That just a man.
But there isn't just one way of talking in New Orleans. There are many different New Orleans dialects spoken by many different New Orleanians. And if you fine-tune your ear to the way people speak, you can pick up a lot of unspoken information about them, from their social class to what part of town they grew up in.
Look at this, a king carriage. What you got, my son? If you get the baby, you can't have a party.
Oh, yeah.
I see it. It's his little foot hanging out. But whenever we used to have king cake parties, my mom would say, don't come home with no baby, you ain't having no party.
Oh, I love it.
I tell you what I do.
What you gonna do?
How much money you got on it?
I got about $40.
Put it up, and I'm gonna call him right now and tell him I need $600, and I bet you be there when I get there.
I said Daddy gonna help you.
In 20 minutes, when I get to his house, put that 40 you got.
Daddy gonna help you.
And when I hit the door, I ain't got to go in and say, hold that.
I said Daddy gonna help you.
You surely are sweet to check on me every night. I really do appreciate it.
What did you fix for dinner?
Well, not too much. Mostly frozen foods, I think, because you didn't cook anything for me today, unfortunately.
Well, I'll fix you a chicken breast tomorrow and some green peas and rice. That's what you love. So I'll fix that for you tomorrow.
In New Orleans, history and language are tied together like red beans and rice. Actually, New Orleans English was shaped by the French and Spanish who first settled here, and also by African languages and the dialects of the Deep South. And in the 19th century, new immigrants to New Orleans added their own spice to the language. Some of the same Italians, Irish, and Germans who helped produce Brooklynese in New York also made their mark on New Orleans English. As all these people interacted with each other, they influenced each other's speech. And that's how New Orleans accents were born and were passed down from generation to generation.
Miss Lucy had a baby, her name was Tiny Chip. She put her in the bathtub to see if she could swim. She drank up all the water, she ate up all the soap. She tried to eat the batter, but it would go down her throat.
Everybody learns to talk in the same way. They learn it at home, first of all, from the people who love them and who are raising them. Later on, they expand into their play activities, and they learn more things from their peers and from institutions, churches, schools, of course. In areas such as the 9th Ward, or certainly parts of the 9th Ward, Tremé or the 7th Ward in New Orleans, perhaps the Irish Channel is a good example, you find that people speak like each other, and they recognize that. They have a common identity with each other. Look at a typical New Orleans neighborhood. You may find grandparents living in the home, aunts, uncles. Often those are the same people that you see at church. They're certainly in the local businesses. The kids are exposed to this all the time.
The 3rd Ward was also a part of the street.
I didn't recall.
That's right, the 3rd Ward.
I didn't think it went that far.
When Saratoga Street used to be where Loyola was. Huh? And where Loyola was is no longer there because the City Hall parking lot is there. Okay?
Oh, Randall.
And that's when the Zulu parade used to wind up on Parker Street at 6 o'clock at night after having traversed all of New Orleans.
No, we were born and raised in the Irish Channel. People from here, black, white, red, green, we all talk the same way. Everybody, if you was born around this neighborhood, you talk that way.
I mean, I live out in Metairie. Everybody says we have an accent. I don't think I have an accent. I think I talk the same as everybody else, except for people from the 9th Ward.
People from out of state, they hear you saying anything we say, they'll laugh at it, think it's funny, but we have warm and we have love in our words, that's all. Our words mean love, care. We care for people. We don't have to go put on. That's the main thing. We don't have to go put on to nobody. We just talk good.
Now, since talking is something most of us take for granted, we hardly ever stop to think about how we speak. And we forget that some of the words we use every day might not make sense to somebody from out of town. Words like
neutral ground,
blanket,
make groceries,
solid quarter, go by my mama's.
I pass the mop and pass the vacuum.
Bobo.
Suck the head and squeeze the tip. That's all.
You can learn a lot about a culture from the words it uses. For instance, if you knew that the Eskimo language had 42 words for snow and no word for palm tree, you could get a pretty good picture of Eskimo life. Well, it works the same way in New Orleans. Listen to our words, and you won't have any trouble understanding what our priorities are.
I have 1 remoulade, 2 gumbos, and a pané meat plate on table 12.
We have andouille, fresh andouille. We have the fresh hot sausage jambalaya. We have the fresh Creole sausage jambalaya. We have the fresh barbecue sausage. We have boudin.
I'd like a king cake, please. One with the icing. That's a medium? Yes, ma'am. Okay, fine. Thank you.
Second line. Second line, bring it on down. The jazz bag. Trim this section. Trim this section. Six walls. Yeah. Right out the trim in. Right.
Can I have this tennis balloon? Do it again now. Get it out. The heavy one?
Okay, well, right now I'm with the crew of Shangri-La. I'm a maid. But normally I'm just a crew member and I ride a regular float, you know. And I enjoy that thoroughly.
Mardi Gras is perhaps the single biggest item in localism of New Orleans. It's a thing by which we identify ourselves as almost as much as more than anything else. And it certainly has produced a lot of words that you have to know if you're going to talk Mardi Gras. If you know what a catch is or what a throw is, if you know what a call out is, if you know what a crew is, you identify yourself as local, and somebody from Houston may well say, huh? And you feel superior because you've been through it, and all they've got is a lot more money.
My name is Deborah Chauvin, and I'm basically from the Ninth Ward. I grew up streets on St. Claude and Franklin and Rampart near the Bywater section. And I went to school in Colton and Nichols.
My name is Sharon Marie Hadfield. I'm 15 years old. I grew up in New Orleans, Louisiana, in the 3rd Ward, which is the streets of Galvez, Mirror 3rd, you know, like that. I went to John W. Hoffman Elementary.
My name is Clive Hardy, and I grew up in the Garden District. My family lived there. It wasn't an old Garden District family. They'd only been in New Orleans about 100 years. My grandfather having come from Germany in the 1880s.
Yeah, I'm Robert Sonny Volkerson, a native Orleanian. I was born and raised here in New Orleans in the 7th Ward. I attended all schools of the Sisters of the Blessed Sacrament. We attended schools at Corpus Christi.
In a big, diverse city like New Orleans, there are many accents. Like a detective, you can listen to someone's dialect for clues to their identity. Like what part of town they're from, how much money they make, or what racial or ethnic group they belong to.
There are a number of different dialects in the area, and there are all shades between them. I think the three major ones certainly are the downtown white, what is often called the Yat dialect, the uptown white, the upper class, upper educated southern speech, and the black dialect. But these shade into one another, and there are many features that they have in common.
I had a disastrous dove hunt last week, though. Went to the north part of the state. Thought we were going to do very well. Didn't fire my gun, but that's averaging with my usual fishing trips. I've taken 5 fishing trips recently, and I've averaged less than 1 fish per trip, so that shows you what an expert fisherman I am.
The best way to identify, I think, uptown dialects is really by neighborhoods, which is what this is all about. And I think there's a distinct University section accent. There's a Carrollton accent. Then you mosey down to the Garden District, stopping off perhaps at St. Stephen's Playground, that area around Camp Street. I think that it really depends a lot on locale, and it's really something that you, like a fingerprint, that I really think you don't have to be Henry Higgins or Higgins to decide.
I had an aunt that lived at 1313 First Street, which is just 1 block away from, that was Frank Strong's home, which was Jefferson Davis's old home, and I just don't think that the people in the Garden District have any accent.
I don't think that uptowners are aware that they have an accent at all, because they think that they are the true New Orleanians, and the way they talk is the way that New Orleanians talk, and that everybody else has a funny accent, and they all find it very amusing. Like, oh, I heard this woman from the 9th Ward, and they take their guests who come to see the architecture and the food, and it's sort of like, let's go somewhere and you can hear some of these people talk. Isn't this exciting? In the Irish Channel accent and the black accent, they find it amusing because it's sort of foreign.
Someone that stays up around Audubon Park or around the Garden District, you know, they talk totally different than someone that stays across the canal, way down in the lower 9th Ward. You can tell. in different parts of the city.
Our ears seem to pick up these accents automatically, and we're quick to form impressions and make judgments of people every time they open their mouths.
They have this, like, proper slang to words that they say, because I was on Tulane's campus the other day, and I was listening to this little chick talk. Well, she was white, and she's like preppy, and everything is like, wow, man, and really, you can tell it's a big difference. Golly, yeah. Like, how much money do your parents have?
Most people know they don't speak the King's English, but they can always point to people they think speak even worse. If you don't talk what's called standard middle-class English, you might run into problems. In New Orleans, this could happen if you speak a black dialect, or if you talk the famous Brooklynese of the older city neighborhoods, the so-called Yat talk.
The problems that a non-standard speaker faces in dealing with the outside world is primarily one of economics, and that is, speaking a non-standard dialect automatically makes one ineligible for employment in certain areas, because unfortunately, speaking a non-standard dialect is frequently interpreted as being lacking in intelligence and lacking in education. And of course, this isn't always true.
There are people that work in our office that greet people, and we were just talking about that. They have this yatty type dialect, whatever, and we were talking about how it's a bad impression when people first enter in our office.
I know how we talk. We kind of, I wouldn't necessarily say slur our words, but we don't, enunciate and pronounce our words. When I want to talk proper, I will. If there's somebody I have to impress or, let go of my yatism, which is, the yat, where you at, yatism, yat power, and so to speak.
If you speak one of these non-standard dialects, you usually know it. But how do you feel when someone points out that there's something wrong with the way you talk?
Yes, I do, because it's ignorant. It sounds ignorant. Come on, listen, these people hear this stuff, they're going to say, what the hell's coming that garbage out there, damn?
That's it, right there. You see, that's it, right
That's going to happen. They're going to hear this, and they say, look at them two beautiful girls. If they'd shut their mouths, it'd be great. My girlfriend...
I've heard that so many times.
My girlfriend Rhoda...
Oh, everybody tells us that.
My girlfriend Rhoda tells me that.
If you would keep your mouth shut, you'd be perfect. Once they hear that, go through it, in and out of you,
In New Orleans, many middle-class people make fun of black speech, working-class dialects, and people they call yats. I don't think they mean to be malicious, but they don't realize that the people they're mocking may find this offensive.
Well, then don't put carrots in the door.
Well, it's in there already. What do you want me to do? Go scrub my floor, huh?
Darling, I ain't scrubbing your floor for nothing.
I told my friend Harry, I said, my husband Harry. Sometimes I call him my friend because I don't like to really admit that he's my husband, Because we went bowling, and he's so fat, he can't lean over and pick up the ball no more. I mean, you know what I mean? It's just too ridiculous, So I said, look, the purpose of the party is a birthday party, and it's a costume party, and the idea for all the costumes was to be your favorite New Orleanian. I'm trying to look like your typical downtown New Orleans yat, and so I guess, even though I don't really know anyone in New Orleans like this is my favorite New Orleanian.
Do you think there are really people out there who talk like that?
There are. I know some. There are definitely people out there who go to Schwegman's and wear exactly what she's wearing right now to the store. It's just, it's unbelievable to see them. They're walking the store, they have their curlers, like her, just like her, but they wear more clothes like that. Like, I don't really care, I'm going to Schwegman's to buy my food for my 10 children, and to make my groceries for my 10 children and my husband, It's funny. It really is.
I think most of this is simply a way of talking about class and color and categorizations, how people fit into boxes. Talking about their speech is one way of doing that.
Girl, yes, indeed. I went to pay the bell at Bobby Womack concert. I was on the floor.
Girl, yeah, she's stupid at that concert, huh? But
Yeah,
y'all
but
ride on that gondola?
Girl, yes,
That's
too scary.
Girl, I was riding on that thing.
Did you go to the kiddie one?
Some of the most distinctive accents in New Orleans are heard in black neighborhoods. If you speak with a strong black dialect, it's even harder to be accepted in the white community.
Blacks do face a more serious problem when they speak a non-standard dialect than whites do, simply because of the racism in this country. I think generally at this particular time there is not an acceptance of black non-standard dialect. I think generally there is a rejection of it.
All right, name me a statement that you figure whites would make that would sound proper that I would make, being a black, that wouldn't sound proper. If they sound proper, how I sound? Unproper? Who determines that? Huh? The way a person speaks or the accent. Can you tell me that? See? I'd like to know too, since you made the statement, right? Yeah.
So if you talk in a non-standard way, sometimes you have problems in the outside world. But if you do the opposite and start talking standard English in your own neighborhood, you might run into even more problems.
It is the means by which blacks identify with each other. And a black person pays a tremendous price when he uses standard English inappropriately. He may lose all of his friends, or he may certainly limit them.
As the phrase goes, you can't come back to your old community once you leave it because they won't accept you anymore. You're going to be viewed as being quite different. And that is the case. I am viewed as being different. To strike a general conversation, how are you doing, what's going on? That's an opening phrase for me, as opposed to, what's up, dude? Well, yeah, bro, what it is, Foley. So that in itself makes a statement to them. You're not one of us when you address us with that standard form. What's going on? How you doing? It's not what you do.
Do you think the three of you all talk in the same way?
Yeah.
No. Yeah, I think me and Chevy do if it's not a million.
Yeah.
Huh?
What's the difference?
I don't use slang as much. I know what the difference is. Amelia have a proper voice than us. She talks proper. Slang as much.
Why not?
I don't know. I know why. Because she's a schoolgirl and she's a mama girl. I'm a mama girl too, but you know, I still be using them slangs. You know? What's happening, girl? Where you been at? Right for nothing much, huh? That's my girl.
Yeah?
Yes,
it ain't about nothing.
It's my paso.
So is that a bad thing to speak proper?
Yeah.
We call Amelia Bunny Rabbit.
Because some people look at you different because you don't use as much slang as them. She's trying to be cute or something like that.
It's just not acceptable in the black community to talk like a white person. And so the black person often has to become bilingual. And I think sometimes the New Orleanian white person has to do that too, just so that they'll fit back into their old personal relationships, and then have another way of talking for the office.
Okay, when I would try to hide my accent, I would, number one, lower the tone of my voice, and I would pronounce my words a lot more proficiently. Is that a word? And,
you use big words.
I would, yes, I would. And, you know, if you insinuate that I should tolerate such diabolical insubordination from a sadist like you, you know, and things like that, and your capacity for audacity simply shocks my natural modesty. And if you persist...
It is very difficult to separate one's language from oneself. And even though a person is mature, even though a person is poised, even though a person knows this, even though he knows it intellectually, emotionally, there is still that strong feeling that if you criticize my language, you are criticizing me.
You see, I look at it like this. You can't look at the color of my skin and try to judge my inside, right? My hair might be natty, my clothes might be shaggy, but that can't stop you from loving me, right? Well then, you know, people make the world go round. You know, the scripture says, judge not that you not be judged. Stand, you judge, you shall be judged.
You feel that way about the way you talk?
The way I talk ain't got nothing to do with my heart, right?
We are live from the Superdome in New Orleans, Louisiana. And they've got a new song and they've got a new saying in this town, and the GIF has become an expert on it. Who dat says they're going to beat them Saints?
and you. So I ain't been home. Where you at, you? I'm so tired being alone. Been away from all your gumbo cooking, your mommy, yeah. I'm so tired of looking for where you at, you.
I think New Orleans right now is falling in love with itself. I feel that the artist community here, the spirit is much higher than it was, say, 2 years ago. I moved away from New Orleans when I was 21 because I couldn't stand the way people talked here. The Yat accent drove me crazy. People sounded so unintelligent, and I wanted culture, right? So I moved to Los Angeles, to Hollywood, right? And from there I moved to New York and lived there and lived with people who lived in Manhattan and spoke very much like they speak here. So then I came back, and somehow the accent, whatever I was repelled by, became endearing to me. And now I love it. I love listening to people who are real at it, don't affect it like I do, but who are real at it. And
over the last 10 years, 15 years maybe, the chances of substantial survival of the dialect aspect of this is much greater than it had been. In other words, the number of reinforcements that you have for remaining that way, the consciousness that it is something you can be to some degree proud of, much greater now than it was 20 years ago. No doubt of that.
So you're not embarrassed by the way you talk? Or
no, absolutely not. You know, I mean, it's not a matter of pride or anything, but I mean, I don't want to go through the process of making my tongue do the stuff you have to do to talk right. I mean, you know, why put forth the effort? Everybody knows, man. Ain't that right?
Been away from all your gumbo cooking, your mommy, yeah. I'm so tired of looking for where you at, you. So tired I ain't been home. Where you at, you?
Yeah, you're right. This show was produced by Andy Coker and Louis Alvarez.
Music by Mac Rebenek.
Thanks to the Golden Griffin Society.
New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival. WVUE-TV.
Thanks to Jandy Dinsmore and Lisa Monroe.
Steve Monastery and Jerry Brock.
Thanks also to Eddie Kirsch.
Narrated by Billy Dell.
Historical material courtesy of the Historic New Orleans Collection.
The advisors were George Reinecke, Mackie Blanton,
Walt Wolfram,
Martha Ward, and Viola King.
Contributing editor, Laura Myers.
Yeah, You're Right was partially funded by the Louisiana Committee for the Humanities.
Louisiana Division of the Arts.
And the City of New Orleans Municipal Endowment Fund.
Post-produced at the Center for New American Media.
TPI.
And WYES-TV, New Orleans.
Thank you. This has been a production of the Center for New American Media.